Okay, thank you so much for joining me, and with your permission, I'd like to begin the interview.
Absolutely.
So, my first question for you is, can you talk a bit about the beginning of Inox Air product? What was the essence of the company and how and why did it start?
So Inox Air Products started actually as industrial oxygen. That was the original name of the company and was started by my grandfather 60 years ago in 1963. In fact, for our family, it was the first manufacturing business that we ever got into. And before that, we were newsprint traders. So back in the day, in India, most of the people, very few families went to manufacturing, but we are Jains. So my grandfather kind of, he wanted to do something which was, in line with our culture and in line with what we believed in, non-violence, and of course, making gases like oxygen and nitrogen from the air was something which, really gelled well with him. And that's how we started. So yeah, it's quite a story 60 years ago. That's when it all began as industrial oxygen back then.
Wow, that's amazing. Very interesting. I didn't know it started 60 years ago. Just a impromptu question. I just thought of it right now. But
Yeah.
do you have any idea which is like the most sold gas in your company? Like which gets the most kind of sales or
Sure.
buy?
Yeah, it's oxygen. It's oxygen. So the way we make gases is from air, right? It's air has about 79% nitrogen and 21% oxygen. So we take air, we liquefy it, and then we separate it. And so it sounds pretty simple, but it is a bit complex.
Sure, it is.
But oxygen is used largely in furnaces in the steel industry. I mean, there are many more applications, but the largest application is in the steel industry.
Wow, amazing. So my next question is that Inox Air product supplies gas to over, I think, 20 industries, more than 20 industries actually. So which strategic tool did you use to identify the gaps in those industries and then thus fill those gaps across the globe, not just throughout India, which I mean across the globe. I went through your website and I mean so many countries you covered. It's amazing.
So, just some background. Our company, we started 60 years ago, but 25 years ago in 1999, one of the global majors called Air Products, they came into India and they wanted to enter India, so they bought 50% of our company. So today, we are a 50-50 joint venture called Inox Air Products. So Inox comes from the short form of industrial oxygen. That's our brand name. So that's where the word Inox comes from. And Air Products is the world's third largest player in industrial gases. It's a $70 billion company. So they came in 25 years ago and they bought into us. So we've been a joint venture since. Our operations are only in India. Our joint venture partners' operations are in 40 countries all over the world. When it comes to our customer base, uh, uh, gases have multiple applications. So, we make our three primary gases are oxygen, nitrogen, and argon. In terms of identifying industries, let's take nitrogen, for example. As time goes on, okay, here's the mobile phone in my hand. This mobile phone, to make this mobile phone requires about 20 different gases, right? Gases that you've never heard of. Some gases even I can't even pronounce. But gases have applications in everything. I have this bottle of water in front of me. This has nitrogen inside it, right? You have a bottle of Coca-Cola, it has carbon dioxide in it. You eat a Lay's potato chips, right? Or whatever, that has gas inside it. You go to McDonald's restaurant. So if you go to a McDonald's restaurant, the burger patties that you have, they frozen in liquid nitrogen. So you might not realize it. The lamp above your head has some kind of gas inside it. Everything requires gases. So we don't need to we didn't need to find a tool to sell our product. Our customers figured out that they needed our product. We simply supplied it to them.
Amazing. I mean, I had no idea about how much gas went in pretty much everything. So very
Yes, pretty much everything.
yeah. So my next question is more towards Inox movies. So why and how did you diversify Inox into the movie screening business? What was the process like? What was the initial response from the company and from the public? Because they're two very different kind of things.
Very different. So our family back in, till 1999, our family was basically in the manufacturing businesses. We had many manufacturing businesses back then. It all began with oxygen, and then slowly the family, before my time, they diversified into other things. So we basically thought it's time to diversify our own business from simply manufacturing and go into a services industry, because India was growing at that time, and we thought services is going to, that line of business will grow. So we hired a consultant. We hired McKinsey back in 99. So we hired McKinsey and we told them that, listen, we'd like to get into a new business, which is in the services sector. And they did a 1 year study. And after doing a 1 year study, they came up with this big, thick report. And the report said, start opening movie cinemas. So we all kind of laughed at first, right? Because that you weren't born obviously then. Back then we only had single screens in India. Each of them, the capacity was about 1200 to 1500 seats per theater. So you can imagine, and there were single screens, so you could only do 4 shows a day. You would do what is all way before your time. It was known 12-3-6-9. There was a 12 noon show, 3 p.m. show, 6 p.m. show, 9 p.m. show. That's all. You didn't have any options. Whereas what had happened in the West in America, they had already gone from, they had graduated from the large single screens into making smaller screens. So you can imagine filling up 1200 to 1500 seats is not easy. Back in the day, everyone could, because they had fewer forms of entertainment. But as time went on, computers came, people had less time. So what they did is they took the 1200 seats and they broke it down into 4 theaters of 300 seats each.
Oh,
Now, all of a sudden, with smaller theaters, you can fill them up faster. And now you can have multiple shows. You can have one show starting at 11 o'clock, 11:30, 12. You can have shows every half an hour, 1 hour. So as a customer, you have the option. You're not stuck to 12-3-6-9.
yeah.
So the advent of multiplexes really changed the movie-going experience in India. And we started our first cinema in 2003, 2002. So we've completed 21 years, and time has flown by. And now, of course, we've merged with PVR. So that's where we are.
So that was actually going to be my next question. But before I move on to that question, I just also wanted to ask you. So, I mean, very interesting to hear that you hired a consultancy firm, because I just did a internship with a consultancy firm. So great to know that this is what all it entails. Because while I was doing my internship, I was hearing such stories of big companies partnering with these consulting firms. So very interesting. Do you often hire consultants for business decisions or?
Every few years. Yeah, not for let's take our gases business. Not for within our own vertical. And since we have so much experience, it's not always that the consultants know more than you. It is only in areas where you lack expertise. Maybe there's something specific in HR, right? You want to start a new framework as a human resources policy, and you want to bring in some best brains who have seen other companies' best practices do it. Or we would hire them if we wanted to get into a field in which we had no knowledge whatsoever. Let's take semiconductors. Right now, you might have been reading that there's a plan to bring in semiconductors into India. So we don't have much knowledge in India about that. So we would maybe work with a consultant there in areas where we don't have much knowledge.
Definitely, definitely. So my next question was obviously related to the last comment you made about PVR. So we know the in the long run that the merger with PVR would result in obviously more screens, more market share. But in the short run, how has this new strategy paid off, or has it paid off in any way right now? Like what has it been the initial kind of reaction?
So I think it's been fantastic. And Rihanna, as all of us know, during COVID, all the cinemas were shut down. In fact, the cinema exhibition industry was, I would say, the worst impacted amongst any industry because the government itself had asked us to shut down for over a year. So during that time, we came together and we realized that things are not going to be the same post-COVID,
Yeah,
and we have to bring in synergies. PVR and Inox were the two most respected, largest players in the industry, and it kind of made sense, because at that time, OTT really, all of us, myself included, during COVID, we all OTT saved us, right?
yeah,
We all sat at home and watched shows, and we would have been bored to death otherwise had those shows not been there. And we realized going forward, that's going to be our future competition at some point or the other. So uh, coming together was the right thing to do, and the synergies will take time to pay off. Our merger just got completed, less than 6 months ago, so it
yeah.
takes time to get the synergies together. But I think it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. Our aim is simple. Our aim is to get you, Rian, and your 16-year-old friends into the cinema.
Yeah.
So, what I want to hear, I'm going to do a reverse interview at the end of this interview and ask you what's going to get you into the cinema. And that's what we need to focus on, and that's what we need to provide.
I don't think anything is getting me to the cinema. A new movie means everybody has to go to the cinema, especially how well if it's
Right,
advertised. And if everybody's talking
right.
about it, then definitely then you have to go watch the new movie. But ever since the
There
pandemic,
you go.
I think there's that like want to go and watch a movie because we haven't had that in so long. Except now we have that
Right.
normal. Now I think everybody wants to go watch a movie. There's nothing like really
Good,
pulling
good.
you towards
Are you
this.
going to see, are you going to see Mission Impossible?
I already watched it.
Okay, did. Good, good. Well,
Wait,
then you see Oppenheimer next.
yeah, definitely. So my next question for you was that as a prominent player in the Indian cinema exhibition industry, how has Inox adapted its business strategy to address the problems by the evolving entertainment landscape? For example, the digital streaming platforms that have been made so widely kind of available to everybody, and also mainly the pandemic. Like, how did you adapt to that kind of horrible kind of environment?
So, we followed a philosophy of what do we need to do to decouch our customer. We use that phrase, decouching, right? What do I need to do to get Rehan to get up from that couch, get into his car, and go to a cinema to watch a movie? So, we basically we have three pillars, which is technology, luxury, and service. So when you get the best, highest technology, the highest level of luxury, and the highest level of service, when you put these three legs together, these three pillars together, is what gives birth to insignia and the gold classes and director's cut and all those kind of things. And it becomes an outing, an event, something like your family, friends, they all want to go out and watch the movie on the big screen. I mean, who wants to watch movies on a small screen, right? I mean, I know some kids love doing it, but you also have to think from the director's perspective, the actor's perspective. They didn't work so hard so that their content would get consumed on a small screen. They Everybody loves that larger than life experience, that immersive experience. So we really adopted a lot of new technologies as well. We brought in 4DX into India, which by the way is brilliant. In case
Yeah,
you haven't seen
I have
it
not
over
read
there.
yet. Yeah,
You should. It's amazing. It's got like 17 effects and shows and all that kind of stuff. It's really great. We got in Screen X, right? It is Screen X is 270 degrees viewing. You basically have three screens, one in front and the two walls on the side.
wow.
All three of them are screens. And so when you're sitting there, you feel like Spider-Man is flying from one wall to the middle screen to the
Um,
next screen. It's really phenomenal. Then you've got IMAX, which is the massive screen experience. You have a luxury cinemas. You have uh, we now have a new technology called the Samsung LED, which in effect is your television at home in the size of a screen. So no projector. So
hmm.
normally you would have a projector in a
Yeah,
theater. Imagine without a projector, right? And So normally, if you walk into a theater, it's all dark,
Yeah.
right? Why is it dark? Because you have the projector and you're seeing it on a screen. Now, in your home, when you're watching television, you don't sit in a dark room, do you?
Yeah.
Because it's a self-illuminating screen. So now think about a theater which has a 1,000-inch TV or whatever else that is, right? A massive one. Now your theater doesn't need to be dark any longer. So you can change, you can have a living room feel as the theater rather than, being a dark theater. So the different things that we keep experimenting with.
Wow, I mean, amazing. I hadn't even heard of all of these, most of these things till
Right.
now. So, I mean, you
There
also
you go.
answered my next question, which was how is like the new technology today played into your kind of business strategy? So you also answered that in the middle of this question.
Right.
So I have my last two questions are, so I'll go with the first one. So what are one of your like favorite hobbies that you feel has helped you in your entrepreneurial journey? Like anything you do outside from work, so basically, that you like to.
So I think for every entrepreneur, having a hobby is very important because all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, right? So
Yeah.
you have to enjoy something outside of work. And I must admit, I don't get a lot of time, but I love golf. I really enjoy it. I have three beautiful daughters. So whatever time I get, my hobby is playing with them. I've got a 16-year-old like you. I have a 14-year-old and I have a 5-year-old. So I try and spend as much time I can with them. But golf is a great sport. Not at your age, maybe later. When I was
I
your
was
age,
playing golf. Yeah.
do you? Yeah. So I at your age, I played pretty much every sport, right? When I was your age. Well, as you can't do that as much any longer. But no, I do enjoy that, and that's what I do in my downtime.
Wow, amazing. So my last and final question for you is, what would be the number one piece of advice you would give to an aspiring entrepreneur of my age or anybody in college? Or, yeah.
Sure. So, Rian, what I would say is that, being an entrepreneur is hard, first of all. It isn't easy. So, you've got to, you have to find a product, first of all, where you believe there is a demand in the market,
Yeah.
right? It can't just be something that you feel that you want to make. You have to find a gap in the market that needs to be fulfilled. What is that product that needs to be fulfilled? Number one. Number two, you need to be passionate, extremely passionate, where your curiosity in that subject is more than the curiosity of other people. You have to be more curious. If you want to be successful, you have to be more in depth. You have to work harder on that one subject than anybody else around you. So be curious, be passionate, and find a product where there's a real customer demand and a need
Yeah.
where you feel. And yeah, the second you start thinking like the customer, you will answer everything else.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. I will definitely keep that in mind. I mean, it was amazing advice. So that concludes the interview. Thank you so much for being here and for doing this.
All the best, Rayan. Wish you all the very best. You're doing a great initiative, and I'm sure it's going to take you, to many greater heights. Best wishes.